episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 239, Goalless Price. The episode begins with Ash and the gang currently resting in the Mahogany Town Pokemon Center for the night after the whole ordeal with the Red Gyarados. They really needed a goddamn break, even though Ash wanted to go celebrate their victory against the Red Gyarados by going to the gym immediately. However, Ash did end up going to the gym first thing the next day, along with Brock and Misty. When Ash arrived at the Mahogany Gym and knocked on the door, demanding a battle though, no one answered, leading Ash and the gang to assume that the gym was closed for some reason, and this was seemingly confirmed, as when Ash tried to push open the door himself, he found it locked. Just then, though, an older woman comes up to them and asks if they were looking for the gym leader, which Ash and the gang confirm, leading the woman to reveal her name as Sheila and state that the gym leader named Price was out training by waterfall, particularly meditating like he did there every morning. This leads Ash and the gang to begin going to the waterfall. However, Sheila clarified that they wouldn't be able to reach it since they didn't know where it was, and it was also atop some mountains, so they would likely need a guide. Brock assures Sheila that he was the group's guide, introducing himself as Brock, the Pewter City gym leader. But seeing how Ash and Misty seemingly didn't trust Brock to be their guide, understandably because he did always seem to get them lost sometimes, Sheila still emphasized that she should be the one to guide them to the waterfall. Ash and Misty happily agreed, leading Brock to follow, but quickly realized that sticking with Brock as their guide may have been the right choice, because Sheila was already long gone climbing up the mountain now, and Ash and the gang would have to keep this pace up if they wanted to follow her, and she was just too fast for them to keep up, it seemed like, as Ash and the gang were fucking amazed at her speed. Meanwhile, Team Rocket were hiding in some bushes by the gym, spying on Ash and the gang as usual, and when they heard Ash and the gang going to the waterfall, they decided to follow. They made some noise as they followed, so they really suspected that they would be caught, but Ash and the gang were too occupied with catching up to Sheila, who was able to easily scale the mountain, climbing up several outcropped rocks, and although Ash and the gang were able to do this themselves, unlike Sheila, they were very tired after the fact. Regardless though, Ash and the gang had arrived near the waterfall, and were about to cross the stream that it was landing in to see if they could find Price, which they were only able to do after waiting a little bit at Sheila's command, as she explained that the water was coming down very heavily, so it would be pretty dangerous for Ash and the gang to cross the river. Once the waters let up a little bit though, so Ash and the gang went to cross the river that was underneath the waterfall, seeing if they could spot Price, and sure enough, Sheila soon pointed out Price meditating underneath the waterfall in the river, letting the water rush over him, surprising Ash and the gang, as the old man was entirely calm during all this. Ash then realized that Price was the same old man that had saved them yesterday with his dugong, the same one that was against turning the Red Gyarados into a friend. Brock and Misty were immensely shocked that this old man was seemingly the gym leader, but Ash didn't really care whatsoever, he just wanted to battle, so he requested a battle from Price. Now, you may be wondering where Team Rocket was during all this. They're probably spying, right? Well, no, because as they were trying to follow Ash and the gang up the mountain, they got lost in a cave that was situated on the mountain, thinking that it could have been a shortcut to wherever Ash and the gang was going, so that they could cut them off. Anyways, immediately upon Ash challenging Price to a battle, Sheila introduced Ash to him. However, Price was obviously well aware of who Ash was, and because of this, he declined Ash's request, stating his reasoning as being that Pikachu was out of its Pokeball, indicating that him and Ash like to hang out outside of battle. Ash retorted that keeping Pikachu out of its Pokeball and with him actually helped him during the battle, since it meant that him and Pikachu had a stronger bond, stating that a trainer and their Pokemon needed to have a good bond if they wanted to put up a good fight, since you had to really understand each other. However, Price wasn't convinced and proceeded to scold Ash for being friends with Pikachu, explaining that he actually believed that all Pokemon shouldn't be friends with people, not just the Red Gyarados, since he thought that Pokemon being friends with people would make them weaker, since the bond they had with their trainer could end up distracting them during the battle and making them not perform at their peak performance. Ash retorted that a bond was needed for a Pokemon and trainer to perform at their best, but Price countered back that a bond was actually detrimental, since a trainer may care about their Pokemon so much that they would move them out of harm's way of an attack, when they should instead take that attack so that they could fight the battle better, and also added that a bond could soften a Pokemon up, making it lose its toughness. Price then decides to challenge Ash to a one-on-one battle after all, so that he can prove his point that he was right and could beat Ash without having a real bond with any of his Pokemon. So he then sent out his dugong, confident that he would win, so he was so cocky and confident that he promised Ash that if Ash actually managed to win, then he would give Ash the gym battle that he so wanted. At this, Ash sent out his Phanpy, leading Misty to advise him that this probably wasn't the best idea, because Phanpy was his newest and therefore weakest Mon, and also the Mon that he had the least of a bond with, so it wouldn't really prove his point that well. However, Ash responded that Phanpy was in tip-top shape, and he actually did have a bond with it, and the battle began, with Ash having Phanpy use Rollout, going for a direct attack, but Price retorted that direct attacks were weaker than indirect attacks, and showed this off by having his Dugong use Ice Beam to freeze Phanpy in place, leaving Ash immensely shocked, as he believed the Rollout would have been able to counter the Ice Beam. Ash apologized to Phanpy, and was about to return it to its Pokeball, hoping to send out another Pokemon, but Price had already recalled his Dugong by this point, and explained that due to how fast Phanpy went down, his point was proved, since Ash had been so focused on proving his bond with Phanpy to Price that he must have got distracted from the actual battle. Also stating that if Ash didn't care about Phanpy so much, then he would have made it continue to battle even while it was frozen. Ash pleads with Price to give him another shot, but Price was done. He had no interest in battling Ash, so he ran off. deeper into the mountains, telling Ash that a battle between the two of them would be a waste of time. Ash was furious about Price leaving and decided to follow after him, even when Sheila warned him not to, since the mountains were dangerous, especially if he went up even higher than the waterfall. Ash either didn't hear Sheila's yells or just ignored her as he continued to go up and into the mountain, going through a cave, leading Brock, Misty, and Sheila to follow him, but they couldn't find him, as, just as Sheila had warned, the cave was dangerous, and immediately upon entry, Ash got lost. Even though he was lost, he was still able to be trailed by not Brock, Misty, and Sheila, but Team Rocket, who had emerged from the other cave that they were in and had actually watched Ash's whole battle with Phanpy against Price, and decided to follow Ash into the cave in order to get Pikachu, putting on archaeologist disguises to help them remain undetected. Unfortunately, as Ash was looking around for Price in the cave, he got separated from Pikachu due to the cave being so dark. However, this didn't mean that Jessie and James could take their chance to get Pikachu, since they had gotten separated in the dark as well. In fact, Ash and Pikachu soon had the advantage over Team Rocket, as he was able to call out to Pikachu and reunite with him before Jessie and James could reunite, meaning that Jessie found Ash and Pikachu on her own. She decided to try and get Pikachu on her own, as she did the motto by herself. But thankfully for her, while doing her motto and running up to Pikachu, James was able to hear this and emerge from a rock nearby, leading Jessie and James to realize that they were never fully separated in the first place. They just happened to go behind different rocks. Anyways, James then joins in with the motto, and Jessie and James both go to get Pikachu, leading Ash and Pikachu to run out of the cave and further up the mountain. Jessie and James are able to follow, and they actually get close enough to grab Pikachu with a net, and they proceed to backtrack, but as they went, they tripped over a rock and rolled back the other way as a result, since Wobbuffet forcibly popped out of its Pokeball. This allowed Ash and Pikachu to escape Team Rocket, and for Pikachu to escape the net, with Team Rocket unable to pursue for a few minutes, since not only had they tripped on Wobbuffet, but now Wobbuffet was crying its eyes out, forcing Jessie to recall it. Jessie and James are eventually able to catch up to Ash and Pikachu, though, as Ash and Pikachu were forced to stop in their tracks due to coming to the edge of the mountain, so their only way down was to literally jump to their death, either jumping down the mountain into the forest or down the huge ravine in the middle of the mountain. This allowed Team Rocket to corner him and quickly grab Pikachu. Suddenly, Price appeared, though, causing Team Rocket to get frightened and drop Pikachu, allowing him to return to Ash. Price immediately scolded them for stealing Pokemon, asking why they thought that was necessary, calling them idiots for doing so, but James simply ignores this insult and explains that him and Jessie simply just wanted Pikachu, as James then sent out his Weezing to use Smokescreen, in an attempt to reclaim Pikachu and then make their escape while the smoke was still active. Now that Ash had Pikachu, though, he tried to escape, but he couldn't see where he was going in all the smoke, and proceeded to fall into the ravine below. However, he was thankfully saved before he actually fell, as Price reached out to grab his arm, and began to pull him up, explaining that the smoke was totally impervious to him, since he knew his way around the mountains expertly, so he could guide Ash and him out. Unfortunately, though, the area that Price was standing on began to crack and then crumbled, causing Price to fall into the ravine as well, making Ash continue falling. Ash knew that it was now his time to save both himself and Price, so he sent out his Noctowl and Totodile. He ordered his Noctowl to grab hold of Price and fly him to the bottom of the ravine, and Noctowl was able to do this, although it was pretty difficult for him, because Price was pretty fucking heavy. Pikachu began to panic, as he didn't know what Ash planned to help soften his and Ash's fall, as Noctowl was fully preoccupied with Price, but Ash still had his Totodile out, so Ash grabbed Totodile in his arms and hugged it, telling him he was counting on it, as he ordered Totodile to use Water Gun at the ground. Totodile did this, which in turn made Ash and Pikachu fall slower to the ground due to the water pressure, meaning that Ash, Totodile, Noctowl, Pikachu, and Price had all made it safely to the bottom of the ravine. Unfortunately, though, Totodile was so tired out from using so much Water Gun, as it required a lot of Water Gun to create a safe amount of water pressure, that Ash had noticed that Totodile had fainted. So he told it that it would be fine, and he went to go recall him into his Pokeball to heal him up, but he was startled by Price first, who actually congratulated him on using strategies with his Pokemon to help them survive their fall. Ash responded that he was able to have his Pokemon use these strategies because he was friends with them, and he had taught them how to do these special tactics, but Price wasn't ready to commend Ash on being friends with his Pokemon yet, far from it. Ash is about to recall Totodile, but he fails to once again, as he gets distracted when he looks up with Price and sees Team Rocket still standing at the top of the ravine. They were currently arguing about whose idea it was to send out Weezing to use Smokescreen, neither of them wanting to take credit, since it had caused Ash and Price to fall down, and therefore make them lose Pikachu. But eventually, both Jessie and Meowth accused James, since James was obviously the owner of Weezing, so it must have been his fault, and this made James mad, as he ordered Meowth to go down and retrieve Pikachu, as punishment for Meowth being his primary accuser. However, Meowth was obviously hesitant to go down the ravine, as it would mean he had to climb down it, and he didn't think he could, even with his claws. He then was cut off before he could climb, though, as Brock, Misty, and Sheila arrived, and immediately questioned where Ash and Price had went, believing that Team Rocket had something to do with Brock and Misty not being able to find them. James and Jessie just laugh, not wanting to give any hint as to where they were, but Meowth was still complaining about not going down the ravine, so this led Brock, Misty, and Sheila to realize that Ash and Price must have been down there. So Brock, Misty, and Sheila approached the ravine, causing Team Rocket to run away, and Brock, Misty, and Sheila then yelled down the ravine to get Ash and Price's attention, and Ash and Price responded, as Ash called out, "Over here!" So this confirmed to Brock, Misty, and Sheila that Ash and Price were in fact down there. Misty and Brock debated how they were going to get down, with Sheila revealing that since she, like Price, was an expert on the mountain, she knew a way down this ravine, being a small gully for them to climb down. So Sheila began to climb down this gully, asking Misty and Brock to follow her, although they were hesitant, but they did want to save Ash, so they went down with her. Meanwhile, back at the bottom of the ravine with Ash and Price, Price had realized that Ash still hadn't recalled Totodile due to all the distractions, so Totodile hadn't been healed up yet, despite how tired out it was. So he proceeded to mix up a spicy herbal medicine mixed with a potion, and gave it to Totodile to try and give him his energy back. Totodile hated the taste, but it still got it down and was fully restored, and happy as a result, jumping up and down. Ash thanks Price for the medicine, with Price simply responding that he helped Ash because he wanted to repay him for saving him, stating once again how he was impressed with Ash's survival skills, though Ash reminded Price again that it was thanks to Totodile and Noctowl that they were able to survive, not him. Sure, he ordered them, but Totodile and Noctowl did do them at the end of the day. And he also claimed that Noctowl and Totodile had helped him come up with his survival ideas, explaining that due to his bond with them, he was able to tell what they thought was the best idea, even through their stress, and implement it. This led Price to admit that being friends with Pokemon may be good in some cases, such as in that case, but he still stood by the fact that it was necessary to not have a bond with a Pokemon when you actually battled with them, since you had to be able to discipline your Pokemon, explaining that just because Ash treated his Pokemon like his friends didn't mean that he would be able to beat Price in a battle. After this, Price began to tell Ash a story, with Sheila telling Brock and Misty the same story up above the ravine. Essentially, Price did used to treat his Pokemon as friends, even like a goddamn family, explaining that together with his Pokemon, he would save people all the time, including a time when Price saved Sheila from falling off a cliff when she was very young by tying a rope to a tree and having his Pokemon pull the tree to pull Sheila out of the cliff. It was then that Price realized, after saving so many people in the deadly winter, that he should specialize in ice types that were especially good in the winter, and also realized that these ice types could be used as tools and nothing more. Basically, he saw how effective ice types were at saving people during the winter, so he figured that he should make them even more effective by not distracting them with love and care and simply just making them work for their entire existence. Explaining that because of how cold he was to his ice Pokemon, people began calling him Icy Price. So therefore, he decided to live up to that name and become the Ice-type Mahogany Gym Leader. Once the story was down, Sheila, Brock, and Misty resumed climbing down the ravine with a rope. But Sheila eventually ditched the rope and just gave it to Brock and Misty, as she claimed that, unlike them, she was too experienced on the mountain to need it, and she simply jumped down to the bottom, being fine due to rebounding off the mountain, yelling happily as she did so. However, by the time Sheila, Brock, and Misty got down, Ash and Price had already left that area of the bottom of the ravine, so that they could try and find a way out of their own, and they eventually stumbled across a cave in the ravine, and went into it, hoping it would lead them to this way out. Price questioned how he had never managed to find out how there was a cave down here, leading him and Ash to come to the conclusion that when Totodile used water gun on the ground, it must have revealed it, as the cave was leading below the ravine, so it was likely created by the water gun that hit the ground. Get it? As Ash and Price walked through this cave, Pikachu then noticed an object on the ground. Price noticed it as well, and immediately recognized it, claiming that it used to be a Piloswine that he used to own's anklet. Price then vaguely stated that this must have meant that his Piloswine must have been down in the cave, and before Ash could inquire any further, Price then went into a daze, as he seemed to be remembering his memories with Piloswine. Just then, Price then began to tell Ash of all his memories with Piloswine, as Sheila, Brock, and Misty arrived down at the bottom of the ravine where Ash and Price initially were, and Sheila happened to be telling Brock and Misty the same story yet again. Price and Sheila did have a little bit of differentiation in their tellings of the stories, so I'll point those out as we go on, but the stories were more or less the same. Essentially, Price and Sheila began talking about how awesome Price's Piloswine was, and how sweet it was, and added that Price and Piloswine got along like family, like Ash and his Pokemon, and were like the perfect match, almost like Ash and his Pikachu. But one day, Piloswine just left Price in the middle of nowhere, leaving him absolutely crushed, as their strong relationship had ended out of nowhere, with Price and Sheila both being very sad at this. Sheila then explained how it was a mystery why Piloswine left, since Price and Piloswine achieved so many victories together, while Price elaborated that he and his Piloswine once entered a national tournament competition in Mahogany Town, and they were able to win battle after battle, round after round, against strong Pokemon like Nidoking and Nidoqueen and Golem. Price was very happy with Piloswine's victories, although we then see a flashback of Price's final match in the national tournament, where his Piloswine went up against a Magmar, and Price was very nervous at this, since Magmar was a fire type, which was good against Piloswine being an ice type. Price saw that Piloswine was very confident though, so he decided to have confidence in his friend, and let him go up to battle anyways. The battle started with Piloswine going to use Takedown, but it was hit by a flamethrower first, severely injuring it, and then Magmar used Fire Blast on the already injured Piloswine, leading Price to run over to Piloswine mid-battle and try and shield it from it so that Piloswine didn't fucking die. However, all this resulted in was both Piloswine and Price being burnt to crisps, and Piloswine was very angry at Price, even though Price tried to apologize to it, with all of his heart, trying to explain that he wasn't mad at Piloswine for losing. Piloswine was still angry though, so Price just picked it up and brought it back to his cottage, and he proceeded to let the Piloswine rest, as he rested as well, as they were both severely injured from the fire attacks. Piloswine was still super angry with Price though, so seeing that Price was down, it took the opportunity to run away into the snowstorm that was currently going on to try and find a new trainer that would be able to help it battle better so that it wouldn't be so injured from all of the fire attacks anymore. Price quickly noticed that Piloswine was gone and was worried about what would happen to it out in the snowstorm, so he called after it, pleading for it to come back, but Piloswine did not oblige, and trudged off, disappearing into a nearby mountain, making Price fall to the ground in sadness and cry. And Price then revealed that he had never seen his Piloswine since that day, and believed that it was gone. Price then revealed that his Piloswine leaving him was the entire reason why he didn't like to make Pokemon his friends anymore, and why he decided to take out his sadness by trying to help people out in the winter, and came to the conclusion that he should only use the ice Pokemon as tools. Essentially, he was so scared of becoming close to another Mon and then having it leave him again, or having him upset it, and he didn't want that to happen, so he decided to close off any more relationships with Pokemon. Ash now comforted Price, stating that he now understood his reasoning completely, and Ash began to cry himself, sad about Price's story with Piloswine. Price didn't cry anymore though, as he simply continued on into the cave, hoping that maybe he could find his Piloswine. Ash decided to follow him through the cave, and they eventually reached another cave that was entirely covered in ice. Both the floor and the walls of the cave were entirely ice. Ash then notices something shining in the distance, and he believes that it might be Piloswine. However, when he reached what he thought he saw, it was nothing but an icy rock that had been shining due to the light seeping into the cave and bouncing off of the ice like a prism. As Price sat on the rock to rest his old body, Ash examined the beautiful view of the glimmering ice and glimmering rocks, which he was enamored by. Ash then became particularly enamored by a seemingly large ice rock, and he then realized that there was something inside the rock that seemed to be blinking. Noting how none of the other icy rocks were blinking, Ash noticed that there was in fact a figure trapped inside, which Price immediately recognized as his Piloswine. Ash and Price were immediately extremely relieved to see Piloswine, and were relieved that it hadn't died at least, although it was frozen. And then Ash noticed that Piloswine was holding something, although he could only identify it as a plant of some kind, but Price was able to identify it as a burnheal herb. This led Ash and Price to come to the conclusion that Piloswine didn't leave Price because it was angry and thought that he was a bad trainer and wanted to go find a new one. It left Price because it wanted to go to this mountain and find some burnheal herbs, knowing that it would treat their burns. So, Price had misunderstood the Piloswine the whole time. He thought it was angry at it, but it really just wanted to help Price. Price also came to the conclusion that Piloswine must have wanted to prove that it could be independent and grab the burnheal herbs all by itself after Price had saved it. Essentially, it didn't want to have to use Price as a handicap and have to force Price to save it all the time. Seeing how Piloswine had been so desperate to prove his independence to Price and save him that Piloswine had fallen down the ravine into this mountain, Price felt immensely guilty and apologized to it for misunderstanding what it wanted and not coming after it, explaining that he would have come after it if he knew that Piloswine wasn't angry with him. Price then began to cry on his knees, sad at the fact that Piloswine was frozen. However, Ash comforted him and assured him that he would do something to save his Piloswine so that Price and Piloswine could become friends and teammates again. So, Ash sent out a Cyndaquil and had to use Flamethrower to thaw out the ice. With Piloswine free from the ice, it was still knocked out though, due to being frozen, and it obviously couldn't stay conscious if it was frozen. So, Ash got the idea to have his Pikachu use Thunderbolt to shock Piloswine up. However, as Pikachu used Thunderbolt many times, it didn't seem to work, with Price realizing that Piloswine had been frozen for so many years that it may never wake up, and it may have already been dead. Ash assured Price he was worrying for no reason, as he had saw Piloswine blink, so it had to have been almost ready to wake up, and it must have just fallen back asleep. Like, it must have been waning in and out of consciousness. And sure enough, at the next Thunderbolt, Piloswine woke up and began to show signs of movement, making Price very happy as he ran over to it and hugged it. And then, much to Price's delight, Piloswine began to smell Price excitedly, recognizing Price's scent. Piloswine then nudged up to Price, and the two of them were friends, once again, even after all these years. Yay! Price also makes sure to apologize to his Piloswine again, to make sure that Piloswine heard the apology, and this just made Piloswine nudge up to Price more. Piloswine then spots Ash, and panically it knocks him over, thinking that Ash was trying to hurt Price or some shit, but Price assures Piloswine that everything was okay, and apologizes to Ash, explaining that Piloswine just wasn't used to strangers. Ash then gets up. Price then orders his Piloswine to stop moving and use rest so it can go back to sleep and heal itself up in the process, since it wasn't able to heal itself up while it was still frozen, but now that it was unfrozen, it could heal. Yay! Ash was confused by what the move Rest did, leading Price to clarify that it was a healing move that a Pokemon was able to do once they fell asleep. And shortly after this explanation, Piloswine then woke up, fully recovered, and they then hear Sheila calling out for Price from the entrance to the cave, along with Brock and Misty calling out for Ash. So, Price and Ash come out of the icy cave and meet up with Sheila, Brock, and Misty, and Price immediately shows them his Piloswine, explaining what had happened, as Sheila excitedly goes up to hug Piloswine, as, she was its friend as well. Everyone seemed happy, but then Team Rocket returned as they came down the ravine using their Meowth balloon, and immediately get out of their balloon, sending out Arbok and Weezing respectively to attack Pikachu and capture it. Ash tries to have Pikachu go for Thunderbolt, but before he can get the Thunderbolt off, Arbok manages to wrap Pikachu up and take him to Jesse and James, leaving Pikachu unable to do anything. So, Ash suggests that Pryce take action with his Piloswine, but Piloswine had decided to use Rest again to regain even more of its energy. This led Ash to go and send out one of his other Pokemon to take action, but Pryce then stopped him, clarifying that he had simply just told his Piloswine to stop using Rest, and it had listened, after Pryce explained to Piloswine that it owed its life to Pikachu, since Pikachu had been the one to wake it up, when it could have stayed asleep forever. So this motivated the Piloswine to quit using Rest, and begin attacking Arbok and Weezing. Pryce equally wanted to save Pikachu, as thanks for it saving Piloswine, so he ordered Piloswine to use a Fury attack on Weezing, and a takedown on Arbok. This takedown caused Arbok to release Pikachu from its wrap, so Piloswine then used a Blizzard to freeze both Arbok and Weezing, and with Pikachu now free, it finished Arbok and Weezing off with a Thunderbolt, also sending Team Rocket blasting off, exploding their balloon. Everyone celebrated Team Rocket's defeat as they left the ravine, climbing back up with the help of Misty and Brock's rope, and then they all returned to Pryce's gym, as Ash requested once again for his gym battle. However, Pryce refuses simply because his Piloswine still needed some more rest, and he told Ash that his Pokemon probably needed some more rest after today as well, and clarified that they would have their gym battle first thing tomorrow after both of their Pokemon got some rest. Ash realized that Pryce had the right idea, so agreed to put off their gym battle until tomorrow, as he, Brock, and Misty returned to the Pokemon Center, where Ash healed up his Pikachu and prepared mentally for his 7th gym battle with Misty and Brock, wishing him luck. Ash hoped he wouldn't need luck, and hoped that his determination would be enough, as well as his bond with his Pokemon.